Welcome to our weekly Forex Forecast, and this is for the week of April 1st to the 5th, 2019. So just a quick disclaimer here before we get started. This is for educational purposes only. Trading is a risky business, so please be careful with your money. And even though this is for the week of April 1st, this is not a joke. It's not an April Fool's joke. We'll actually do our real analysis. All right, as usual, we'll start off by taking a look at our weekly calendar here. So coming up on Monday, we have a whole bunch of PMI numbers. And actually, one thing that's not here, but we have to be careful with, I was really hoping we'd get past this whole Brexit stuff, but we are not past it. So Parliament rejected the vote on Friday. So now we're going to get some more uncertainty because EU only extended it till May 21st. So UK still needs to figure out what they are doing in regards to Brexit, and they have to take some sort of a proposal to EU. So we are likely to see some more upheaval in that case, especially with Prime Minister Theresa May, people asking her to step down. So keep an eye on any Brexit-related news because it will still drive the British pound and push British pound around. So expect volatility in regards to that to continue. Okay, so having said that, PMI numbers, they are leading indicators, so it is important to pay attention to that, and they usually have an impact. We also have Chinese PMI numbers here actually coming out today. Now with Chinese data here, even though we may not trade the Chinese currency, however, they have an impact on Australia and New Zealand. So Australian dollar and New Zealand dollar get impacted by that. So watch out for the related reaction in those two currencies. And then coming up on Monday in the New York session, we do have retail sales data and PMI numbers from the US as well. Lately, we've been seeing some negative data coming out of the US. So if you see more data that does not meet the forecast or expectations, so that will be negative for the US dollars. Keep that in mind. The previous numbers have been negative. The last few numbers, if you take a look at them, they've just been negative numbers. And if the negative data keeps piling up, it will have a negative impact on US dollar. And then we have Bank of Canada, Governor Poloz speaking. Now, some people have been saying that Canada or Bank of Canada is likely to cut rates this year. I don't think they're at that point just yet. But if Bank of Canada starts dropping some hints in regards to that, it could have a negative impact on Canadian dollar. I don't think we are there yet. Maybe later in the year, if things don't improve or if economy starts to go sideways. But at this point, all we're looking for is some forward guidance from Bank of Canada as to what they're doing. They were raising rates. Now they have stopped raising rates and they are in the same sort of pile with everybody else, with the Fed, ECB, RBA. Everybody is basically concerned about economic conditions, and they are saying that the economic conditions will actually go lower or decrease in the coming months. As a result of that, nobody's thinking of raising rates at this point. So if they continue on with that, it's okay. But if it turns negative, that will have a negative impact on all these currencies. Question here is CAD price affect oil? It's vice versa. Oil price will have an impact on Canadian dollar because Canada is such a big exporter of oil. So we have seen that Canadian dollar has gone up as a result of oil going up recently. So that's the correlation there. And then Australian dollar here, we have some Australian numbers coming out for building approvals, but we also have RBA rate statement. So last time RBA rate statement came out, it was not very good. So at this point, RBA is not looking to cut rates, but again, how they think about it will make a difference. So what they say, about the economy and things like that, it will have an impact. Last time we saw Australian dollar drop as a result of the rate statement. So we could see a similar impact if the commentary stays in line with the previous comments. So keep that in mind there. Tuesday, we have a budget release from Australia. Usually it will have an impact on the on Australian dollar there. And then we have core durable goods orders. And same thing applies here, what I said earlier, if the US data continues to come out negative, it will start to really impact US dollar. So keep an eye on that. Retail sales for Australia, as well as the trade balance. So I think last time the trade balance numbers had come out positive and it had given Australian dollar a lift. So let's see how these ones come out, but they will have an impact on Australian dollar here. And then we have more PMI numbers out of Eurozone. On Thursday, we have, this will be important here, even though it does not say red here, ECB monetary policy meeting accounts. This is like the Fed meeting minutes. So very important. Again, last time ECB was dovish and they were actually talking about putting more money into the economy or giving more money into the banks. So if they are, again, they express concerns about the economy or the liquidity, or they want to put more money into the economy, all of those things are negative for the currency. They're positive for the stock market, but they are negative for the currency. So keep that in mind. On Friday, though, we have big numbers coming out. We have US dollar non-farm employment numbers, as well as Canadian employment numbers. So if you're trading dollar CAD, both of these numbers will have an impact on your trade. So don't forget to look at the other pair. So it's not just one, both of them will have an impact. But overall, though, non-farm payroll numbers usually big market mover. So just be aware of that, and market can go in both directions when we see non-farm payroll. So just be careful if you're trading the news. All right, so let's move on to our charts here. And we will start as usual with euro dollar. Euro dollar last week, we saw a drop in euro dollar. We had a nice pin bar last week and we were looking for a drop. So we got that drop here. Now we have a nice bearish candle close. So bias is bearish here. Now do keep in mind that we have seen a draw for multiple days here. And what that means is that the price is likely to pull back when that happens. So watch out for pullbacks. But bias is to the downside, and I will look for a price to drop here. But be cautious with everything that is going on in regards to Brexit and also the US dollar data. Like I said, if the data comes out negative for the US dollar, it doesn't matter. Things can change here. But just purely based on technicals here, bias is to the downside. Watch out for pullback. The targets here will be, first one will be the bottom of this pin here, this candle, which is a 1.1170 level basically, and then looking for price to drop further, 1.1100 and then 1.1030 level. Now, as we can see, price has not been in this area for a long time, which means there are likely to be buyer orders sitting there. So do watch out for this push to the upside, and make sure that we need to see a close after the push. We do need to see a close here, which is 1.1280 level. So if price closes below that, stays below that, then I would look for price to continue. But when we see that price hasn't been at a level in a long time, and we are talking about a year ago, which is April 23, in April of last year, so, or 2 years ago, actually, my apologies, 2 years ago is where we saw price at this level. means there will be a lot of support and there will be buyers sitting there. So be careful with that one. But bias is to the downside here and looking for price to drop. Okay, pound here. Pound has been interesting. It has gone back and forth. And in terms of our weekly here, let's take a quick peek. Pound is super volatile. Okay, so pound is super volatile. And as we saw, prices have dropped. So we have a nice bearish candle close here. So bias is to the downside here. But again, it has been trading in this range for the last 5 weeks here, 5-6 weeks here. So price is a little bit range bound at the moment. So we have to see a close below this green candle here for it to continue further. So bias based on the weekly close here is to the downside. But like I said, again, I would be careful because there's a ton of stuff going on in terms of Brexit there, and it will cause volatility for British pound. But for now, bias is to the downside, and the target is 1.2800. So bearish bias for pound. How's the sound for you guys? Is it better now? Okay. Yeah, my apologies. I think they're doing some internet upgrades in my area. So I've been experiencing some issues this week here, just last few days. Okay, so let's hope this one it continues on okay. All right, so I'll try to get through it quickly so we can avoid some of these issues. All right, so this one here, Aussie dollar here, we had a pin bar yesterday. Price went and we did a retest of this area that we had talked about, but it hasn't, didn't go through. It hasn't dropped here. But this week, we have 2 pins here. So this is bearish. Basically, price got rejected twice from that level. So I will look for price to drop here. The first target here is get rid of some of these. Okay, so the first target here will be 1.700 level, the base of this pin here. Second one, we can move this further. Second target would be 0.6920 level, and then finally 0.6820. So bias here for Aussie dollar is also to the downside for this week. New Zealand dollar here, this one was interesting because Reserve Bank of New Zealand basically came and said that next move is likely to be to the downside. So we saw New Zealand dollar drop. So this time we have a bearish engulfing candle here. So bias is to the downside and looking for price to drop further here. And the move that I would look for here would be perhaps a bit of a pullback here. It could go slightly higher into 68.20 or maybe 68.50-ish level, and then looking for price to drop from there. First target will be the base of this range that price has been trading in. So as we can see, for several weeks now, price has just been trading in this range. So looking for price to come and test the bottom of the range. And as we can see, so many times price has been rejected from the bottom. So be aware of that. If price breaks through the bottom of the range, only then would I look for a continuation. So first target is the bottom of the range at 0.6700, and only if the range breaks will I look for 0.6580 level. But bias is to the downside for New Zealand dollar as well. Dollar CAD here, this one was also interesting. We saw a big drop here. It went both ways. So if you take a look at daily here, we had this big drop in dollar CAD. So now we see a bearish candle close. So this looks bearish here. As we can see, price has rejected the high of this little range as well for 4 times. So 4 weeks in a row, price has rejected the high, which shows us that price is likely to drop further. So for this one, bias is to the downside. Target will be 1.3250. And as we can see, this is a range. So looking for price to come back and test the low of the range, but only if it goes through the low of the range. If it breaks out from here, only then would I look for the next target, which is 1.3120. But first target here is 1.3250, then 1.3120. So bearish bias for dollar CAD. Oil we'll come back to later. Euro pound here, this one has been trading back and forth here. As we can see, this is also in a range. It's been stuck in this range for the last little while. We do have a bullish candle close for the weekly, so looking for price to go towards the high of the range at 0.8720 level here. So bullish bias for euro pound and looking for it to go towards the high of the range at 0.8720. Euro Swiss franc here, this one has kind of moved both ways here, but the weekly candle close is bearish. Last week it was bearish and we were looking for a drop. So we do have that. And now I would look for a continuation. So first target here is 1.1100. So 1100 is the target. So bearish bias for euro Swiss franc. And with this one as well, anytime we have a big drop, I would look for pullbacks either into 1180, so 1.1180, or it could go further up into 1.1200. But basically looking for a bit of a pullback and then a drop. Bias is to the downside. 1.1100 is the target for euro Swiss franc. Pound Swiss franc here, this one as well, we had a nice drop, so nice a bearish candle close here. Looking for price to drop further. Next target is the base of this pin here at 1.2850 level. So 1.2850 and then 1.2650 after that. But bias is to the downside here for pound Swiss franc as well. Again, watch out for pullback into 1.3050 potentially, but bias is to the downside for this week. Dollar Swiss franc here. This one hasn't really done a whole lot. It just moved up a little bit. Now, this one, it depends how price reacts here. We do have a bullish candle close, but it's not a very solid bullish candle. So this one could just be a pullback for a further drop here. So my bias is to the downside for this one, but I would be cautious. And we have to see how this one plays out. So I am looking for perhaps a further drop here. So first target will be the bottom here at 0.9900 and then 0.9800. But watch out with this one, just a little cautious here. Pound yen, pound has been interesting again here everywhere. So with this one here, last week was bearish. Actually, another thing we have to keep in mind with all the yen crosses here, things were dropping, but then we heard comments from US, I suppose, saying that the China trade relations were working or negotiations were going in the right direction. China was going to allow some concessions in terms of technology and other areas that they have not really been very willing to negotiate. So as a result of that, stock market went up as well as the yen crosses. So keep an eye on that commentary. If you hear any comments in regards to US-China trade relations going, or negotiations going well, that will be positive for all the yen crosses, and it will be positive for the stock market. But if we hear comments about those negotiations not going well, then we are likely to see yen crosses drop as well as the stock market drop. So just keep that in mind. So that's what we have here. So it is bearish, but we are right into the bottom of this range here. So price has been trading in this range for the last 4 or 5 weeks here. And now we are right into the bottom of the range. So the problem with being into the bottom of the range is that a lot of times it can go higher. So with this one, bias is to the downside, but I would say a big note of caution here. If price does not break the low here, which is at 143.80, if it does not break this level, chances are price can go back into the range. So at this point, our weekly candle close is bearish. For it to continue, we need to see a break, a pullback, and a further drop here. So for now, this is range bound, and it can go back into the range, but overall bias is to the downside. And the target, if only if this breaks, would be 141.00. So bearish bias here for yen. Just keep in mind my what I was saying with the be cautious. Yen here, euro yen has kind of gone sideways here as well. It was dropping, but then we had those comments can't come out that changed things a little bit. So with this one as well, just the way I said with dollar Swiss franc, this also is kind of slowly making its way down here. So we saw this pullback, drop, pullback, drop. So I'm basically looking for a drop here. The bias is to the downside here for euro yen, and I'm looking for price to drop further. Now, having said that, I will repeat my caution against around all the yen crosses there. Any comments can change the direction of the market. So just be mindful. But for now, just purely on technicals, biases to the downside. First target is a 123.20 and then a 122.50. So bearish bias for euro yen. Dollar yen here, this one has actually moved higher here this week as we saw a drop. Now this one is moving up. So we are into resistance. So depending on how this one goes, it is a bullish candle close, so it can go up further. And in that case, if it continues higher, we're looking at 112 point potentially 20. But if it doesn't, then this one's a little bit tricky because it could be a pullback here. So I will watch this one. I will watch out for dollar yen, because if US dollar is strong, dollar yen is not really going to move very much compared to other yen crosses. But this one, we had a nice bearish candle close. This could be a pullback for it to continue lower, but it could also go higher. So this one is a little bit more neutral than the other ones. So just be cautious. If it breaks through this 111 level, then we could go higher into 112.20. But if it stays below this 111 level, then I would look for a continuation lower into this bottom of this pin, which is a 108.50. Aussie yen has also kind of gone back and forth here, and a lot of that was based on comments, and then we also saw the Aussie is generally weak in my opinion, but we have seen all these comments coming out, and as we can see, it has been trading in this range. Now we have a bullish candle close for this week. So I would say bullish here, and we could see it go all the way into 79.80 level and then potentially drop from there. So this one is range bound at the moment, looking for a bullish move towards the high of the range and then a potential move to the downside from that level. And as we can see, for several weeks now, not just for 2-3 weeks, for several weeks, it's been range bound. So at this point, we have to look for a break out of the range. But for now, looking for a push higher into 79.80 level for Aussie yen. New Zealand yen here, this one has also gone back and forth here. The bias here is a little bit more neutral here. So we did see a drop, but then price pulled back. So we have large pins on both sides, small candle body. That's a neutral candle close here. But the close is lower than the previous one. So slight bias to the downside here. So bias is bearish to neutral. In this case, basically what we're looking for is price to move to either direction. So bias here will be neutral, and we need to see a break out of the range. This has also been trading in this range for last several weeks here. As we can see, this is the range for several weeks. So now we need to see a break either to the downside or to the upside. So depending on which way it breaks, I will have targets on both sides here, but we need to see a break. Right now, it's kind of in the middle of the range. So neutral to slightly bearish bias. CAD yen here, CAD yen has gone up. Canadian dollar actually was bullish, and as we can see, this one has gone up. So with this one here, bias is bullish, and we could see this one move all the way into 84.00. So bullish bias for CAD yen. All right, so now let's take a look at our commodities here. Commodities, gold here had a nice drop, and now this is looking quite bearish here. So we have a bearish engulfing candle close, and in terms of targets here, okay, so for targets, looking for potentially a pullback and then a drop and a further drop. So bias is bearish for this one, and looking for a potential pullback into 1300. First target 1280, then 1270 here. And let's see the next target after that. So 1280, 1270, and then potentially into 1250, so 1260, let's say. So bearish bias for gold there. Silver has dropped as well. And as we can see, here we are. We have a nice bearish engulfing candle close. We could get a pullback into 15.28, but the first target here is 14.90 here, and then 14.60 level. So bearish bias for silver as well. But watch out for a potential pullback into 15.28 level. Copper has actually gone up here, and as we can see, it's pushing back up. So this is looking bullish at the moment. So I would look for it to go into 2.96, which is the high here. So bullish bias for copper, and if it gets through that, it could go all the way into 3.00. But it would have to break the high before it can continue. For now, this one looks bullish. Oil here has been going up as well. That's why we saw dollar CAD actually drop. So Canadian dollar picked up steam because of oil. So right now, oil looks bullish. It is into the high, though. Hasn't quite broken the high yet, but it could. So bias is bullish here. Next target is 61.60. And then it could go all the way into 64.00. So bullish bias for oil. And that's why dollar CAD, the bias is to the downside. Bitcoin here has also been going higher. Next target for this one is 4220 level. Now, do keep in mind, my charts have not been updated for Bitcoin over the weekend because my broker is closed. But looking at Friday's close here, bias is bullish for Bitcoin. S&P looking bullish here. We had a bearish pin bar. It dropped a bit. And now we saw the reversal based on the comments that came out in regards to the US-China trade relations. So this is looking bullish. I will look for a test of the high. And if it breaks through that level, then we're looking for So first target is 2860, then 2900. So bullish bias here for S&P 500 this week. NASDAQ here also looking bullish. We did have a nice pin bar. It dropped a bit, but comments can really change the direction here. So this is looking bullish here as well. 7520 will be the first target. And then we're looking at the highs basically here at 7,700. So bullish bias here for NASDAQ as well. Japanese Nikkei here. Nikkei hasn't really done a whole lot. We have an indecision candles spinning top, and as such, this one could go in either direction. Now, it has been trading in this range, so I would look for it to be range bound. We have slight bullishness here, so I would say it could go into the high here. FTSE here has been very bullish as well, as we can see. Next target would be the high of this pin bar here at 73.75 level. So bias is bullish, and if it gets through that, then it opens up this move here. So 75.50 will be the next target there. So bias is bullish for now for FTSE as well. DAX here. DAX is also looking bullish. Price has gone up. So next target would be the high of this candle, which is 11,832. So bullish bias for DAX as well. Now, they're all looking bullish, but like I said, if comments come out and we find out that the trade relations are actually, negotiations are not going well, this can change. So that would be the only thing to be cautious of. But other than that, the equities are looking fairly bullish at the moment. All right, so that's all I have. Any questions? So I will be sending out a spreadsheet to go along with this as well. Keep an eye on it. There'll be a link if you watch this on YouTube, or if you're on my mailing list, you will get it automatically. So if you are interested in that, please feel free to go and download it. I will upload that in just a little while here. Any questions before we wrap it up? All right, no questions. So you guys have a wonderful trading week ahead, and I will see you again next week then. Bye for now.